we could begin with you introducing yourself and describing what you do.
My name's Ryan Gander, and my job title is mainly artist, but I do other things as well.
Your job title is mainly artist, but you do other things as well.
Yeah.
You're an author?
I do all sorts. I do writing, clothes design, make TV programs, some consultancy work, architecture. I do all sorts. Invention.
Invention? What kind of invention?
What kind of invention? I make lamps. I suppose that's a sort of invention. The thing is, when you get into a taxi in London, the taxi driver always asks, "What do you do?" And if you say you're an artist, you get a lot of awkward questions, and your journey is difficult to withstand. So I don't say I'm an artist. I usually say I'm a teacher or I make films.
If you hadn't been an artist, do you think you would have been a teacher or a filmmaker?
Well, I was a teacher before I was an artist. I probably would have been maybe a writer, script writer, or one of those syndicate writers for Mills and Boon, writing romance with 10 other people, where the main character's hair changes colour halfway through.
Okay. Your artwork, if we could talk about that for a second, is a lot like you're describing the sort of rest of what you do. You've never adopted a single style. Like you've never, there's no work that you see that you can easily say, oh yeah, that's a Ryan Gander.
That's true.
Was that an intentional approach to making art?
It's intentional insofar as I hate art that's predictable and I dislike practices that are repetitive. The whole point of being an artist for me is to be able to do new things every day. Wake up and make the uniform for a McDonald's drive-through attendant, and then the next day wake up and make a ballet about the idea of teaching dance. And, you know, the distance between those things is what makes life brilliant. And it's the only real occupation where you can do whatever you want when you wake up, which is such a liberty. Is it intentional? It's intentional as so far as there's a work ethic and a conceptual rigour associated with the pursuit of language. And if you're really good at visual language, why would you make the same thing every day? You know, if I spent 15 years learning Russian, I'd be pretty proficient in Russian, but I wouldn't just say the same word when I wake up every morning and nothing else.
Do you think, though, that there's something that does unite everything you do?
38 years of being me unites it. It's really about contributing to art history and contributing to visual language. I mean, for me, it's really about how articulate you can be in visual language, and just the intonation and the way of speaking and the way of mastering that language is a bit like, it's like a pursuit or an endeavour or something to master. It's like a quest for me to be as fluent as possible in it.
But not all your work is visual, right? You did a piece at the Biennial Venice Biennale a couple of years ago that was just wind.
Everything's visual, really. Even if it's a piece that works in the form of storytelling and fable making, there's always someone's telling the story. There's the barroom table that the story's told at. The wind piece is visual because there's someone standing in the wind. But yeah, the work, it's hard to explain. The work is so broad and so disparate and all over the place. It's hard for me to talk about my work as a practice, because whatever I spoke about, I'd be contradicting myself, because there'd be another work that would be interested in something else, or would be, you know, a counterpoint to it.
Some people have looked at it as a sort of deliberate evasion of
style.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is some evasion of stylistic signature, yeah.
Does that...
Which is also a bit suicidal in the art world, because obviously all the artists that are really wealthy make things that look like the same, so people who collect art can say, that's a A, that's a B, that's a C.
You just
See the
stole
way I
my
purposely
question.
didn't name anyone's name there.
But you just stole my question.
Sorry.
Which was exactly that. You know, does that make it tough to become a, let's just name a Damien Hirst, right? Because you see his work and everyone knows.
When you edit this, is it rhetorical, or are you in the?
We're in it.
You're in it. Okay.
What do you think? What?
I just wanted you to say Damien Hirst, not me.
Oh, I said it. But you know, is it a deliberate evasion? And does it, you know, with galleries that represent you, do they ever say, "Oh, come on, Ryan, let's just do some more of the palette paintings"?
No. Of course they don't. But I mean, I work with incredible galleries, and I'm a difficult artist, aren't I? If I had a gallery, I wouldn't represent me at all. It sounds like a nightmare working with me. You never know what you're getting. You never know if you'll be able to sell it or not. Some works are about the idea that they can't be sold and they still need to be shown. But I mean, the galleries that I work with aren't, I mean, of course, everyone needs money. Otherwise, I need money. Otherwise, I wouldn't make any more work. But that's not the primary reason they're working with me. They're working with me because they're interested in what I make. And, you know, that's why I have really good relationships with my galleries. And you know, there's a lot of conversation and trust there.
I'm interested in talking, which is it's a quick gear change, but specifically talking about male artists taking up the subject of family in their work, which doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't, does it?
You've done it.
Yeah.
Matthew Day Jackson just did a beautiful piece, or a show in Zurich that was all about family. Why have you engaged with it?
Because the primary focus of my work is education and development, mine, and you know, and like I said, mastering visual language and pushing things forwards and contributing to art history and adding to that vocabulary and that, you know, body of visual language. And because of that, I'm really interested in education and development. And if you have a child, you know that there's a wonder in seeing them grow and become little people, and the way that their mind works. And just, it's impossible for me not to be massively intrigued and massively jealous of their lack of inhibition and their lack of cultural baggage and the brilliance in their naivety. You know, when my kids go into a gallery and they see work, they say what they think. No adult goes in and says what they think. And if you say what you think, you're not afraid of elitism of knowledge, then yeah, you contribute.
Can we talk specifically about the "Tell My Mother Not to Worry" piece?
It's a ghost.
A ghost of
Is it a ghost?
Yeah.
I have long titles and lots of them, so I'm never totally sure which work people talk about. It's a marble ghost. It was actually it's an offcut of another work which is called I is ... instead of I am, which would be the Ebonics for I am, like je suis, I is. No, I be, that would be. Anyway, I is ... which is I think it's part of the human condition for us all to build dens, shelters like a instinctive activity, finding shelter, building shelter. When you have kids, you see them building dens in the lounge with an old chair and a clothes horse that you dry clothes on and a big sheet, and they climb inside and they say, "This is my house." And then the goofy dad climbs inside with the kid and says, "This is my house." But the dad doesn't think it's a house. The dad knows it's a clothes horse and a chair and a sheet. But the kid really knows it's a house. And that's the difference between kids' naive imagination and adults' tarred imaginations. But so everyone's done that. Whoever's watching this has done that, definitely. That's because everyone does it instinctively. And she did that, built a den, and then I looked at it and I just thought it was finished. It's all done. So I took photos of it, and then I moved it to a studio, sprayed it with super glue, had a mould made of it, and had a marble cast made of it. So you end up with a solid marble den, which looks like a sheet thrown over a chair. But the compositions are hers, Olive's, which is also interesting because she keeps making them. She's 5 now, and every time she makes one, it's slightly bigger because she's slightly bigger, so it grows in its mass with her age, but it also sort of develops intellectually, becomes more complicated, more intricate, architecturally more elaborate. So there's a few of them. She's going to stop making them, then I won't be able to pay any assistance, and I'll go bankrupt.
What with that piece, I hadn't thought about the building of a domestic space, which is sort of what it, right? It's a den. It's a...
Because it's solid and you only see it from the outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that tension intentional, or is it...
it's not, everything's not non-intentional. They just are. Because I don't really make them, she makes them, so I don't make any aesthetic decisions about them. It's very hard to replicate, take the sheet and the chair and the clothes horse to a space and set it up, which is why I thought they should be cast. And then marble seam, you could put different things in with the resin. So picked marble dust. There's also some sort of reference to the legacy of Roman sculpture, I guess, traditional drapery in marble.
But yeah, because you're saying you don't author them, but you do author them because you make the decision to put them in marble, right?
That's true.
And they're going to outlive, presumably, all of us.
They might not. I don't know. I've never thought of that, actually.
Well, it's
quite interesting. Yeah, maybe they will. Well, they probably will. Yeah.
Well, and the permanence of something that is so impermanent in this quick fleeting moment.
Yeah, I don't know. Never actually thought about what my work, where physically it would be when I'm dead before. It's quite interesting, actually. I've always, when I've thought about being dead, I've always thought about the sort of the legacy in storytelling of what I did, not physically what the things, where they were, what they are. I've always thought about people talking about things that I made. Never actually thought where they would be or what they do. So I've learned something today.
Well, that's very interesting, given you're so prolific. I mean, you make a lot of work.
Yeah, but yeah, no.
So there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there must be a lot of stuff. I don't, some artists are quite, they like the stuff that they make, and they, but I'm not. Physically, the things don't matter. As soon as I finished it, even when I'm making it, I'm thinking about the next thing. That's the biggest criticism of me from my studio manager, is that I start stuff and then leave everyone to pick pieces up and move on to the next project when it's not even finished, the 20 I have going. Because I just like playing about with ideas, I guess. And the things, when they're done, they're just they're not really the artwork. The artwork is the fact that I did it. These things, the stuff that you're on about, is just like byproducts or offcuts or fallout. Receipts. It's like a receipt. It's the bit that's left over. It's not the actual work. The work is it happening in history and people knowing about it and people enjoying the fact that somebody did it.
It makes it makes a lot of sense.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. Especially when you, invisibility is talked about with your work so much, both with the den pieces, the wind piece we just discussed, and I think there's you resist this the finalness of the object, if that makes sense. Which is probably why I haven't considered about them being left around.
Yeah. I'm not a big fetishist of things. That's the thing. I mean, I collect loads and loads of things. I have lots and lots of collections of weird things like mints, stones from my family graves, diorama postcards, dice, shoes, stuff that I think is interesting, but they're like the artworks that I make. If they're physical, there's no sentimental attachment to them. They're just carriers or vessels for a brilliant idea.
How can we? I want to talk about the Happy Prince a little bit, because I think the idea of nostalgia and this idea that we're touching on of art as a memorial and something that lasts is implicit in that work. But maybe you could talk about it a bit.
The Happy Prince is essentially it's a fake ruin that I made as a public sculpture in Central Park, and it's a fake ruin of it's a visualization from my imagination of the last page of an Oscar Wilde storybook called The Happy Prince that my father used to read to me as a kid at bedtime. And I made it because of my awkward disdain of public art. I think there's public art and then there's art for the public, and the two shouldn't be confused at all. And I mean, I've probably done like maybe 6 public sculptures or things like that. It's public artworks. And I've probably been asked to do about 50, or invited to do, to pitch, if that's the word, to come to a jury with an idea, to propose an idea, about 50. And I've proposed about 30. Because not all the contexts are very interesting. So there's a lot I haven't got. And obviously, it's not me being egocentric or big-headed, but my proposals were the best. But I would think that because they were my ideas and I wanted to see them exist, so any artist would say that. But The Happy Prince is essentially a story about the disparity between public art and art for the public. And there's a prince that's covered in gold leaves, and he has emeralds for eyes and a ruby in his sword hilt, and a little swallow flies down and lands on his shoulder. And he asks the swallow to distribute this wealth amongst the city, so the sparrow plucks the jewels from his eyes and pulls the gold leaf from his body and takes it to a little girl who's selling matches in the gutter, and the matches are wet. And essentially that is what public arts should be. And at the end of this children's story, the town councillor comes round and says, the Happy Prince is looking very shabby, tear it down and put up a statue of me, which is what public art is. So I thought it would be perfect to illustrate the point. So I have a funny relationship with works in public space. I did 6 months ago, I was asked to propose something for a university in Norway. And all these public art things have a colossal amount of money, which you always feel a bit awkward making a thing with, because, you know, an idea can cost you 50 pence to make and be as, well, invisible. It doesn't have to have any scale, and it can be a huge work. So having that amount of money to make something that's permanent and big is always a bit distressing to me. And when I went to do the site visit, I noticed at the university there was a lot of students that couldn't afford to be there. So my proposal was to redistribute the money like a modern day Robin Hood by introducing a Norwegian forest cat to the university, and starting a scholarship where one student would be picked to feed the cat, and they would have their fees paid from the budget that I would be given to produce some ghastly sculpture. A cat, yeah. Because it was a new university and it was far too institutional. It needed some sort of domestication. So I thought that was great because it would end up giving the 40 students for 40 years free education. And that's a good way to spend public art money because it's public art. And it's nice to have a Norwegian forest cat running around university, very therapeutic. I've chosen a Norwegian forest cat because they're the least allergic, hypoallergenic. Anyway, needless to say, I didn't get it. They picked some ghastly collage made of tiles or something. But that also illustrates the point of the contradiction between public art and art for the public.
Do you...
I could go on and tell you about 20 of them.
We could just do a whole
20 failures
interview of that. Well, yesterday we were talking with, oh gosh, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Hans Ulrich Obrist was talking about that architects is well documented. All the things that all the projects they imagine are well documented, and about 50% of them are actually realized. But with artists,
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
But Hans did a project that was unrealized projects.
Yeah.
That was, I think, a book. Was it a book? I can't remember. Yeah.
What since we're on the public art kick, did you see the locked room scenario as another? I mean, it wasn't public, but it sort of was.
Yeah, that worked hard to explain because it's a bit of everything, isn't it? It's like architecture, performance, object making. I mean, I made about 40 works by 7 fictional artists for it, so I was making art as well for it. But it took about a year to make. I mean, just the online content, we had about 5 people doing that for 3 months just to make the histories of all the fictional writers and curators, and it was quite a time-consuming thing.
Adrian Searle said he'd never get to the bottom of it, that he could never figure it out.
That's good then. That's probably the perfect compliment. Yeah, if you're still thinking about it on the bus on the way home, even if it was a horrible experience, it's obviously a good work.
How much, I mean, with that piece, obviously so much fiction is tied up in the work, this storytelling. Do you think that's true of all of your work?
Not all of it. It's hard to say anything about all of it. But some of it, and a lot of it, yeah, is storytelling. But it's storytelling through examples.
With hindsight, do you ever look at the work and change the analogy or the meaning? Does stuff change for you?
Yeah, I mean, history changes the meaning all the time. It's quite weird, actually, how works change over time. And you have to make a million decisions about a work, ask a million questions, and a lot of them are intuitive and instinctive, and you don't know you're questioning them. And the decades of learning about asking questions and about art and about visual language inform those, so they just happen automatically. But there's also, it's not like the Matrix where you move your hands around really fast and you can just pull up any information. A lot of the time there's things that you just don't know is going to happen. I think that's one of the good bits in a way.
Do you approach your writing in the same way that you approach the object making, for lack of a better word?
I do lots of different types of writing in different styles and different voices for different reasons, so it's also hard to put your finger on that. But I'm really slow at writing. I find it really, really difficult. I'm alright at talking. I can just about articulate what I'm thinking with words, but when it comes to writing, the slowness of getting the words down, I'll lose my point. And then, so if I was to write a review of someone's show, it'd take me about a week. Well, you know, people write them in an afternoon or a few hours. But the last book I wrote, Ampersand, I wrote with a dictaphone, which was really interesting. There was I can't remember her name, but there was a journalist that used to work for The Guardian, and I heard that everything that she'd written was into a dictaphone, and it had a real conversational style to it. And because I live in the countryside, but the main studio's in London, I commute a lot. So sometimes I take the train, but sometimes I drive. So I wrote the last book when I was driving on just with a dictaphone. So it's punctuated with beeps of the horn and swearing at cyclists.
Is that in the book?
No.
No. That'd be fun if you had kept all that stuff in.
Yeah, I just speak it all, and then it's transcribed, and then when I get the transcription, I just go through it, and then someone who's really intelligent rewrites it essentially to make it sound better. Yeah, take out the swearing.
What about the video works? So we've briefly touched on the sculptures and the writing, and what about the video works? I mean, in Man on a Bridge, you resist letting anyone see the action if you want an action.
Do you know what? If there is a common theme, you know, you're talking about looking for a common theme. If there is a common theme, I think it's resisting closure.
Yeah.
Like you talk about invisibility. I think it's resisting closure is the theme. Trying not to close anything down. Try and make things as full as meaning as possible, so that there's more out points than in points.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that piece for me is wonderfully poetic, because
you know,
it forces you to imagine.
The guy that's in it, it's Roger Lloyd Pack. He died recently. He was who was he? Trigger in Only Fools and Horses, but he did loads of stages. He was a brilliant actor. I mean, that was an inquiry into the skills of an actor. I shot the same shot of him walking over a bridge before the Olympic Park was built, on the building site of the Olympic Park, and I asked him to, every time he walked over the bridge, he'd walk over the bridge at the side of a motorway and he'd look over into the canal. And he did it about 60 times, and every time he did it, I told him who he was, a different character. A man who'd just come back from, was going from home to work, and he just opened a letter that was a letter from a solicitor saying that the divorce for his wife had gone through. And then the next time he was a milkman on his way back from work. And every time he did it, you could see he was a different person. It's quite astonishing, but he was wearing the same clothes and he didn't say anything.
Wait, would you ever tell everyone what all the scenarios were? Like, would you?
I didn't record. I can't remember what they are. No.
I think that for me, I'm not trying to pigeonhole the work at all, I swear. But for me, the thing that impresses me about your work is the ability to make people imagine. So with that piece, you have to imagine a story with the, with all of the work you're asking the audience to use the brains a bit.
It's funny because I often think that I'm really lucky because I must have such a good audience base. You look at a lot of spectators in the art world, and you go around biennials, or you go around art fairs, or you go to galleries. There's a lot of people that don't invest anything. They want it handed to them on a silver plate, and they want it as simple as possible. They just want emoticons and palm trees and skulls and diamonds and all that simple gaga, mama, dada, baby language.
Not mentioning any names.
Well, and if I mentioned names, I'd be here for about a year, because half the art world uses basic signifiers. That it really startles me, the illiteracy of artists in the last 5-6 years. Astonishing. Anyway, I'm going to turn into Victor Meldrew and get really miserable and middle-aged. When I was a lad, it was all brilliant. Up in Manchester, everyone was really clever. What was I saying? Yeah, so the spectators, they invest their energy and their time, you know, and the same with, I guess, collectors that have my works. They, you know, my works never go to auction. Well, they do, but, you know, they hardly ever go to auction. It's because they're always bought by people who are incredibly conscientious, and they understand that the thing that they're buying is a part of history. That the world's sped up so much in the last 5-6 years. It's like startling and terrifying at the same time. The speed. I'm really into slowness. Slowness is I'm into making a lot of works and quickly, and there's an urgency, but this speed things, it just scares me. It doesn't give people time to think about what they're making or what they're looking at. It's just like a feeding frenzy of vampires.
Do you think that's just down to because we're bombarded with imagery? That you know, everyone's staring at their phone and then having a conversation.
Yeah,
and then...
but you can turn your phone off. You know, this is what I mean. It's the same with cyberbullying and all that. You can turn your computer off. You don't have to have it on. You can not look at it. You know, I just don't understand that at all. It's not like heroin. You just turn it off. Speed thing's weird. I don't know. But it's also, yeah.
But some people do get addicted. I mean, there's a whole, right? People have been talking at the moment about being addicted to technology and that you need to spend half an hour away from it a day.
It's a bit daft, isn't it? I feel like if these are the people that like leave special volcanic stones on the doorstep to stop getting cold. It's just Mystic Meg stuff.
What talk about the piece you've done here?
I did 2 pieces here. One was a public sculpture in the park, which is a US aid parcel stuck in a tree. So it's barrels with a parachute, but when it was dropped, it's got caught in a tree, so it sort of just hangs above your head. And it contains a sort of toolkit or time capsule of articles that would be used by me to make an artwork. So it's like a collection of materials and subject matter and reference points. So an unscratched scratch card for the lottery, fool's gold, fake snow, yeah, all sorts.
And
it's called the Alchemy Box, and they're a series, and they always look like different things. So one would be a pile of magazines, but it has a hole inside where everything's in a cavity. One could be a sign, a light box sign that you'd find in a hospital that says that a room is closed. But they always take different. They're like, it's like an analogy from what my work is. So all the stuff inside it is the real work, is the art, is the soul, is the important stuff, the ideas. And then there's this vessel that it's kept in. And you have to destroy the vessel to see if the stuff's inside or look at the stuff. But the vessel is like some sort of pseudo pastiche of what art looks like. So it's like I'm trying to make art on the outside, but that's not the art. It's just a sort of cloak for the real thing that's inside. They're called alchemy boxes.
Which is, I mean, it's a perfect companion to the other piece, which is a performance, right?
Yeah, the other piece was a lot of work that I make. I don't know, obviously, I don't know if it's going to be very good. But that is the point of making art, not to make stuff that'll sell or make stuff that's going to be genius pieces. I actually don't like genius pieces. I like work that you learn from, and a lot of the work that I make, I don't see through to the end, or I chuck it out, ends up in the skip. But that's the point of being an artist, is to learn, to try things out and to make mistakes. And in the making of those mistakes, you develop your own language and your own voice that is unique to you. And that's what pushes things forward, and that's what writes history. Anyway, what was I saying?
The piece, the performance.
Oh yeah. It was one of those works I didn't know if it would be very good or not. And I had some anxiety with the idea that in its verbal description, it sounded like a one-liner. Because on one hand, you can get works that are one-liners, and on the other hand, you can get works that are incredibly simple and light on their feet. And works can be both of those things. They're almost the same thing. It's a fine line between how it would pan out. But basically, Nicholas, the curator of the public art section, asked me if I wanted to do a performance as well as a public sculpture, and I said yeah, and he said, what would you like to do? And I said, I'd like you to have bodyguards. So he had bodyguards.
Did he enjoy it?
I think he's coming down, his ego's coming down from not having them. It's quite weird because, I mean, you don't choose what they look like, so it's another, like so many of my works, I don't choose what it looks like. The style is just an accident of the conceptual reasoning behind it. They look like the way the idea is. It's not like, I'm going to make something with glitter dust, diamond dust, and it's going to be mirrored and flashing and beeping, and, you know, it's not, it doesn't work like that. So I didn't know what these guys would look like. They were just bodyguards. You don't pick them on the website of how they look. You pick them on how good they are at ninjutsu and pulling people's heads off and stuff. And it was great. I was like, so it was one of those investigations to see how it would, what the fallout would be and how it would function in the world. And I really enjoyed the experience of it. It was, they were brilliant. They just guarded him, and they were constantly looking around on rooftops for snipers. Every interview that he did in photo, they were standing beside him like two bookends. Every time he went through the crowd, they like pushed people aside. No one could go up to him and shake his hands unless he nodded at them first. Did
you tell them it was a performance, or did you sort of...
They knew, but I didn't even give them a directive. I just said, do exactly what you do. You're a bodyguard, you're not an actor, just do what you do. But a very funny thing happened. Nicholas Baum, the curator who had the bodyguards, the next morning after the first performance, went to the fair, and he was at the Gagosian stand, and he saw one of his bodyguards on the stand, so he went up to him and said, Fernandez, how's it going? And Fernandez turned around and said, excuse me, sir, pretended he didn't know him, and he was with Leonardo DiCaprio. So he was like moonlighting, doing two jobs in one day. What a faux pas.
I normally try to end with a good concluding question, like what's the point of it all for you?
What's the point of it all for me?
Yeah. What's the point of art for you?
God. I don't know. I didn't even want to be an artist. I just ended up being an artist. It wasn't like a plan. Yeah, do you know, I'm so lucky. Imagine having my job. It's phenomenal having my job. I'm like the luckiest guy in the world. Yeah. I guess if there's one thing that I want to do is I want to be, if you take the analogy of a fire, I want to be like a piece of coal that burns really hot for ages, and not be a bit of kindling that's really bright and goes out straight away and doesn't create any heat. Because my job is so good that I want to do it for as long as possible.